Thank you everyone for joining us both on and offline. Welcome to the 2021 OGP Global Summit, second day, the special session, Youth Summit with me, Shinjie, as your MC. Well, to first review on our agenda today, after the Deputy Minister of Interior and Safety of Korea delivers his opening remarks, the Deputy CEO of Open Government Partnership and the representative of the Open Government Youth Collective will deliver their congratulatory message. And afterwards, the youth representatives will make policy proposals according to each theme. And of course, this will be followed by the closing remarks from the Secretary to the President for Youth Policy from the Office of President Korea and the Executive Director of Tuawiza East Africa and incoming OGP Steering Committee co-chair. As this Youth Summit will strengthen the international solidarity among the young activists all around the world and also serve as an opportunity to improve the youth representation in the process of making the open government policies, please make sure that you stay with us until the very end and have a valuable time. And now to fully begin the Youth Summit with some open remarks, today, the Deputy Minister Han Chang-seop of the Interior and Safety Korea is joining us today with his high interest in the DNA of youth to seek innovation and make brave challenges. So, for the opening remarks of the 2021 OGP Global Summit Special Session, the Youth Summit, ladies and gentlemen, please welcome the Deputy Minister Han Chang-seop with a big round of applause.
Good morning and good afternoon. I am Deputy Minister Han Chang-seop of the Ministry of the Interior and Safety. I am very happy to see so many youth leaders from all over the world. I am standing here at the venue, but I can see all these faces that are virtually joining us online. And I feel like we have a true gathering of youth from all over the world. I would like to extend my gratitude to Joe Powell, Deputy CEO of OGP, Aiden Iakuze, Executive Director of the OGP Civil Society Co-Chair, and Park Sung-min, Secretary to the President for Youth Policy, as well as Shaima Bruises, a youth activist, and Accountability Lab, which is a valued partner for the Youth Summit, as well as Blair Glenkos, Executive Director of Accountability Lab, for their contribution. The global discourse on youth policies has been shifting away from providing policies for the youth to making policies together with the youth. The UN announced a youth strategy called Youth 2030 in 2018. And in this strategy, youth participation and advocacy was pointed out as #1 priority. And the strategy emphasizes the need to build a meaningful and sustainable partnership between the UN and the youth. The Korean government used to provide policies for the youth, but now the government is trying to engage the youth more actively in the decision-making process so that we can co-create policies for the youth and by the youth. And to this end, the Basic Act on the Youth was enacted to engage youth at the central government and the local government level. We have regional youth platforms and youth participation vehicles to facilitate communication between the youth and the local communities. I believe that we need to move away from making policies for the youth to creating policies together with the youth. We need to allow young leaders to take the lead in the public discussions so that they can be engaged in resolving many social issues. In this regard, I believe that this youth summit will provide a meaningful opportunity to redefine the role of the youth and their contribution. We need to build a more transparent, a more inclusive society where citizens are the owners. And to make this happen, we need to listen to the voices of many stakeholders, including civil society members.
우리 청년 대표단의
I myself consider a partner for the youth representatives, and we will make sure to create a more open government. From the workshop to the global summit, there has been an extensive journey. I'd like to express my gratitude to all the youth delegates for their contribution and their passion. I also like to thank all the online and offline participants from around the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Deputy Minister, for opening the Youth Summit with your remarks. As he have mentioned, today's platform, the Youth Summit, will be a meaningful event for the open government and the youth leaders in order to pave the way towards the future. 네, 그리고 잠시 한국어로 안내를 드리겠습니다.
We will also try to provide some housekeeping announcements in Korean. We are providing simultaneous interpretation services. Please make use of the simultaneous interpretation receivers on the tables in front of you. Set them to 1 for Korean, 2 for English, 3 for Spanish, and 4 for French. Thank you very much.
Partnership has been serving as a platform for the young people to generate the future they want. Well, and today we have the Mr. Joe Powell, the Deputy CEO of Open Government Partnership, who will deliver a congratulatory message. So let's watch it through the screen.
Thank you. Thank you, Deputy Minister Han Chang-sop, and thank you to the Government of Korea and Accountability Lab for bringing this incredible group of young leaders together for the OGP Global Summit. For me, this is one of the most exciting and important sessions of this entire summit. Open government is inherently about expanding democracy so that everyone has a voice in decisions that affect their lives. For too long, in too many countries, young people have been excluded from the democratic process, whether at the ballot box or beyond the ballot box. And yet at the same time, it has been youth-led movements that have increasingly driven the political agenda, from the Friday for Future movement that has forced climate change up the priority list so that it cannot be ignored by any political leader, to the students in Hong Kong who have bravely stood up to the erosion of democracy. OGP must be on the side of those movements and must be a place where advocacy, campaigning, and activism meets policy change. We've seen this in Uruguay, for example, where reformers used OGP to improve rural government services for youth and women. This commitment advances participatory methods that led to over 200 young people creating an agenda for rural youth, which was then presented to national authorities. And we've seen similar initiatives across the world, from Philippines to Ontario, Canada, and Elgeyo Marakwet County in Kenya. We also saw the amazing OGP Youth Summit last year, thanks to our partners like Accountability Lab and Restless Development, and many of the group gathered here today, where there were fantastic conversations on a range of topics, from tackling COVID to more inclusion for women and other marginalized groups. So all of that progress is good, but it is also not sufficient. And that's why we're here today. I know over the past few weeks, this youth delegation has been helping shape the next steps for youth in OGP, working together to share experiences and policy priorities from across the 14 countries represented here, and from across government, civil society, academia, and all of the different backgrounds that all of you come from. The ideas that will be presented today will shape the future of OGP, and you've provided critical input into a forthcoming youth toolkit, which will help guide all of our OGP members, national and local. We want to make sure that that toolkit is used in every single OGP forum, so that when we meet again, we have far more of these inspiring examples to share. In closing, we need a new generation of civic leaders to take forward the open government and democracy agenda. In fact, we need a leadership revolution. There is no coalition for open government that can meet its full potential without the engagement and leadership of young people. And this is not just a point of principle, It's a point of effectiveness and results, because we know that no coalition can be effective without young people taking the message out across our communities. And now we need to take that message out across our entire partnership. So really looking forward to working together to make that happen. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Deputy CEO, for your remarks. With the efforts currently made, more youth, as the leadership of the new generation, will participate lively under the OGP to spur the changes that are already being made. So let's make sure that we are going to use the given time wisely in order to drive the challenges. And now, moving on, representing the Open Government Youth Collective, we have Ms. Jaime Borges, the project coordinator of Friedrich Naumann Foundation for Freedom in Morocco, to deliver her remarks. So let's welcome her through the screen.
Ladies and gentlemen, Your Excellencies, let me first start by saying this was such an easy speech to make because my presence here today isn't for the show, like it's usually the case when young people are invited. I'm here today while deeply convinced by the real will of OGP to ensure that young people are central to the process of policy and advocacy around open government going forward. So while here, let me first reiterate that OGP isn't only a multilateral partnership to promote open government and transparency, but it's also a foyer to those crazy of us enough to believe in our ability to rebuild democracy in these times of crisis. And what OGP actually has taught me since my participation in the 2019 OGP Youth Summit is that today more than ever, it's time to break the ties with policies aligning with a framework of circumstantial remedies without a true diagnosis of the reality of young people and marginalized communities. So I'm very happy to be here today to tell you that we are gathered to launch the OGPU Summit 2021 that aims to actually shift the perceptions of young people and to take and reframe actions by suggesting policy recommendations through their 3 days workshop in order to avoid the inevitable conclusions that we are all familiar with, that we are very much used to. So for this exercise to succeed, I can definitely not miss addressing decision makers that are present here today. I am fully aware that when public decision makers or public decision making becomes a career that leads to having years and years of agendas full like the one we have in this summit in such an incredible setting, it becomes easy to get disconnected from the reality of the bigger picture. But today is also your time to implement change, to envision it, to ensure its achievements. To the young people present today, you might ask yourselves what it takes to be a young leader. Well, it's easy. It takes to unfold your potential, to uphold your values, and to be bold in a world of turmoil. But please, while you're carrying your conversations, be sure not to focus on empowerment only, unless you want to continue to talk about inequality, iniquity, violence, etc. Rather, focus on how together as young people, we are able to exercise our inherent power and agency. I am looking forward to see the results of your discussions, and I'm wishing you the very best of luck throughout this amazing journey. And I'm deeply grateful for this opportunity. Thanks a lot for having me today, and I'm looking forward to what's to come.
Yes, thank you very much, Ms. Jaime Borges, for your remarks. As you have mentioned, it's up to the young people to make changes as they are put at the center of open government. So today, here at the Youth Summit, in order to suggest the policies for the 3 major common visions of strengthening civic and public participation, anti-corruption, and inclusive digital innovation, the 26 youth representatives from 14 countries have gone through the 3 days of workshop and a week of group discussion. And thank you, all the youth reformers, for being able to and for willing to change the status quo and for raising your voices. All of your hard work indeed requires and deserves a big applause. And today, Mr. Blair Glenkos, the Executive Director of Accountability Lab, who is doing his best in order to realize the open government centering the youth, will join us today in order to brief us on each of the topic. We thank him for accepting our invitation to help the young leaders share their innovative ideas on the open government. So among the 3 topics that we will be dealing today, the first topic that we will be diving into is anti-corruption. So before the youth representatives make their proposals, we will first welcome Executive Director Blair Glencos to brief us on the topic.
Hello, everyone. My name is Blair Glencos. I'm the Executive Director of the Accountability Lab, and it's a pleasure to be with you today. I'd like to begin by saying what a privilege it has been to work with these youth delegates as part of this OGP summit and to work with them on these policy proposals. We already knew that the future of the open governance movement was bright, but the last few weeks really have confirmed this. I'm filled with hope and inspiration and energy from all of the incredible work that these young people from around the world have done, from Brazil to Nigeria to Korea. I'm truly excited about the future of this movement and about their policy proposals, which they are pitching to you today. And the first group that I would like to introduce is the Anti-Corruption Policy Proposal Group. The last years, of course, during COVID have brought unprecedented levels of corruption. In 2020, nearly $11.7 trillion was spent by governments worldwide to address a range of issues related to the pandemic. But issues like contract irregularities, missing government aid packages, medical supplies going missing, bribery, money laundering, fraud, embezzlement, and much more. All of these corruption issues have plagued our response to this pandemic and made it much less effective and much less citizen-centered than it should have been. And at the same time, this corruption more broadly continues to undermine our democratic systems, and without strong commitments through OGP focused on political integrity, anti-corruption, and economic recovery, and all of the other related issues, we are not going to be able to create the citizen-centered decision-making and open governance that we need. So corrupt, interconnected practices experienced by all countries have ultimately lowered the quality of public services, diverted aid away from those most in need, deepened inequality, and eroded trust between citizens and the state. In OGP, members have advanced a number of anti-corruption reforms in critical areas, including open contracting, public procurement, beneficial ownership, political integrity, and the extractive industries. There have been over 700 anti-corruption commitments implemented by 91 members over the past 10 years. So this topic is incredibly important to OGP and to citizens everywhere. And the policy proposal that our youth delegates have developed can play an important role, I think, in helping to shape some of this thinking going forwards. I'll let them tell you now more about this policy proposal, but I just wanted to say what I like about it is the way that it brings together interconnected themes in a way that is self-reinforcing. We can't fight corruption by focusing on just one piece of this, and I think they've prioritized the three pieces that fit together to form the basis of their proposal really well, and those are self-reinforcing. And so I'll hand it over to them. Thank you so much, and take it away, Anti-Corruption Policy Proposal Group.
Thank you very much, Executive Director, for the kind introduction. So now let me introduce to you the delegations who have been discussing on our first topic, the anti-corruption. Thank you very much for joining us, Esma Gomberis and Fabio Roten, and also Gabriela Boichet, Hwang Si-eun, and Ismail Awal Galba, and Kim Min-ji, Rafael Reite, Romina Damini, and Seo Hyo-jin. And now I will leave it up to you, Hwang Si-eun and Rafael Reite, to proceed with what you have prepared.
Distinguished guests present, thank you for your presence on behalf of the entire OGP Summit Youth Delegation. My name is Shin Hwang from the Anti-Corruption Stream Group. Wrongdoing, fragile concept of integrity among public servants, and general public disdain continues the corruption. As a result, one of the most deleterious effects of corruption, the erosion of citizen confidence in the functioning of public institutions, arises. Our ideas started from there. How do we restore the public confidence? Ultimately, the goal was to strengthen an evidence-based culture of integrity in a public sector. We believe that symmetry of information available to the public and lack of openness of which government agencies are striving and which are lagging behind deactivates a cycle of integrity promotion within the public sectors. And of course, lack of appropriate institutional infrastructure translates into lack of capability in resolving public grievances against government corruption. While focusing solely on regulation and negative reinforcement will not sustainably eradicate the problem. During the deliberation process, the anti-corruption group discovered that different countries encounter different challenges. Differences in institutional capacity and level of development shaped which types of changes are best suited to each case. As we encounter more and more differences, we felt the need for a common approach to combat corruption within the member states. With this in mind, we came up with an idea of setting an OGP anti-corruption criterion. The OGP anti-corruption criterion contains 3 levels of recommendations that cover varying logics to countering corruption, sharing information, improving foundations, and developing culture. Each branch can be summarized as better information, better institutions, and better civic participation. Let's take a closer look one by one. Raphael.
Hi, Shion and everyone. I am Rafael from the Anti-Corruption Framework. Assuming that the public sector is like a belt of different institutions, we identified that the lack of information makes citizens generalize negative experiences of corruption in the interaction with government. To change that, governments must send better information with regard to the efforts made by different agencies to create integrity. For this reason, our recommendation 1 is to adopt an index of integrity in public service, whose calculation must include at least 3 sets of data. Recognized inputs from citizens and civil servants, data and the transparency of government agencies, and information on possible conflicts of interest of individual NGOs. We believe that an index like this could allow the creation of heat maps about the efforts to make an accountable public service, so citizens and citizens can make evidence-based decisions on how and where to invest their resources in fighting corruption. Recommendation 2 addresses the need for institutions that are able to use information data on integrity management in the public service. We believe verified and corruption is enhanced by agencies equipped with capabilities to make policy. Regarding this issue, our proposals organize into 2 main ideas. On one hand, integration of multi-stakeholder councils with broad competencies in integrity management, such as awareness campaign, policy schemes, and marketing intention etc. On the other hand, we suggest the modernization of equipment practices for the independent agencies. In addition to being open and transparent, should also possess elements that take into account indicators and their use. Finally, the fight against corruption, we believe that cultural change is key. To achieve this, our third recommendation is to foster joint anti-corruption partnerships between governments and civil society. In this state, that goes the following. 1. Anti-corruption monitoring panels that generate and publish data on civic perspectives on corruption. 2. Generational diversity goals for citizens' consultation spaces to increase the number of young leaders participation processes. And lastly, 3, the youth empowerment instruments such as fellowship programs, training courses, and community practice. In the process, we emphasize that young people are being advanced ethics, leaders, and long term. Engaging in training to protect and foster a culture of integrity.
Mr. Raphael, can you hear me?
Yes.
Actually, the mic condition of your side is not really good. So would you like to adjust your mic? Yes, thank you very much. And would you try speaking once again?
Okay, since the beginning.
I'm sorry, but the quality of the sound is still not that good. So
Not hearing it now.
would you try maybe plugging off and speaking right through the laptop? Yes,
Can you hear me
maybe.
now? No? Yes?
Oh, this is good.
Yes? Okay.
Thank you very much.
Do you want me to start since the beginning?
I think you can proceed.
Okay. Since the beginning.
No, you can start from where you have just stopped.
Okay. So I will continue from the third proposition. So finally, to fight against corruption in the long run, we believe that cultural change is key. To achieve this, our third recommendation is to foster joint anti-corruption partnerships between governments and civil society. In this stage, we propose the following. 1. Anti-corruption monitoring panels that generates and publishes data on civics perspectives on corruption. 2. Generational diversity goals for citizens' consultation spaces to increase the number of young leaders in participation processes. And lastly, 3. Youth empowerment instruments, such as fellowship programs, training courses, and communities of practice. In this process, we emphasize that young people like us can advance ethics behaviors in the public sector. Engaging in training young people in the long term in each of these ideas could foster a culture of integrity.
To wrap up, the OGP anti-corruption criterion is organized into measures whose implementation depends on the maturity of anti-corruption practices in place in different countries. At the most basic level, we argue that governments should develop information infrastructure, since the accumulation of evidence is required for successfully designing institutional adjustments that promote integrity. At an intermediate level, it is essential to have public agencies that are able to take advantage of strategic information. We propose measures that can help governments to strengthen their anti-corruption institutions. Lastly, at a more advanced level, we argue that only better participation practices will uphold integrity in the long term, because these practices can shape social behaviors towards corruption and reinforce citizen demand for better governments. Corruption has been a perennial problem for us. However, as long as there is a consistent and strong partnership between citizens and governments, as the Open Government Partnership pursues, integrity will be part of our presence. As the pioneers of integrity, our presence as young people in this space today is a sign of this. That was
Rafael Leite
and Shen Huang from the Anti-Corruption Steering Group. Thank you, everyone.
Yes, thank you very much for your suggestions. OGP anti-corruption criterion for better information, better institution, and better civil participation. I hope that the ideas shared today will be inscribed and be reflected on each country's constitution or the policies. And now, as we turn to our second topic, which is the civil space and public participation, let us welcome Executive Director Blair Glenkos once again to brief us on the topic.
Hello again. The second group I would like to introduce to you is the group of youth delegates that have been working on a policy proposal around civic space and public participation. Civic space is, of course, the underpinning for open government, yet it is eroding globally. According to Civicus, only 4% of the world's population now live in countries with open civic space. That's a huge, huge problem. According to analysis in 2019, in OGP, 58% of OGP members report issues related to the harassment of activists and journalists. In nearly half of OGP countries, civil society organizations lack access to funding and face barriers through tax regulations. In 52% of OGP countries, there are reports of excessive use of police force during protests, as well as the use of surveillance against citizens and public and private organizations, journalists, and human rights defenders. In 45% of OGP countries, there are problems with censorship online or discrimination. Nearly 50 countries as part of OGP have made commitments to protect civic space, and current reporting on these commitments suggests that they are outperforming other policy areas. So this is a really important part of the plans that exist amongst OGP countries. And while member uptake has decreased over the past 10 years, this remains a really, really important part of what it is that OGP, I think, helps to push and support. And without engaged citizens and strong civil society organizations, open government cannot achieve its fundamental purpose. So to support countries to protect civic space, OGP works to strengthen the co-creation process, which serves as an important dialogue platform between government and civil society. It coordinates with a range of partners to help countries develop ambitious commitments to protect a coalition of organizations that work in civic space in every country. And it mobilizes these organizations to lead and promote ideas on advancing civic space and public participation. The OGP 2021 call to action highlighted ideas from OGP members to advance through their upcoming OGP action plans, which actually correlate quite nicely with what you're about to hear from our youth delegate group, including freedom of assembly, association, and expression, along with cross-cutting recommendations that include issues of diversity and inclusion. So we need to find ways to help citizens participate in meaningful ways and that all voices are heard as part of policymaking. Governance is not open unless it's open for everyone. And what I love about this next policy proposal is there's a real focus on inclusion, both for governments in terms of OGP commitments, but also for OGP itself and its processes as we work towards improving and opening up civic space and improving public participation in the years to come. So I'll hand you over to our representatives from the second group that is going to tell you a bit more about their policy proposal for civic space and public participation. Thank you.
Well, thank you, Executive Director. And now let me introduce to you the representative who have joined the discussions in order to strengthen the public space and the civic participation. So we have An Ye-seung, An Jun-hyun, Ilma Rivai, Melissa Chaides-Castañur, and Park Hong-jun, Park Sung-soo, Son Yu-jin, Doneisa Jarrett, and Vino Lucero. Thank you everyone for joining us today, and I'll leave it up to Vino Lucero and An Ye-seung. The floor is yours.
I appreciate everyone attending here and online, so let's get started, Vino.
Okay. Good evening from Manila. I am Vino Lucero from the Philippines, and I am with my co-speaker, Yusung An from South Korea, on behalf of a team of 9 youth leaders from 5 different countries all over the world to present our recommendations in improving civic space and public participation in countries onboarded in the Open Government Partnership. We crafted these recommendations keeping in mind current challenges and limitations being experienced by countries about this topic.
Thanks for your introduction, Vino. To add to that, our recommendations center on 3 key goals. First, to ensure citizens have the access to information that will empower them to participate in public processes. Second, they also have a hand in creating lasting changes related to inclusion in the countries participating in the OGP. And third, that citizens can help ensure that no one gets left behind in the civic space when it comes to inclusion and participation.
Yes, the first recommendation encourages that countries pass legislation both at the national and subnational levels, ensuring the people's right to know, more known to others as freedom of information, so that they are empowered to participate in public processes by having the information to engage in a meaningful way. This would also mean publishing information online and offline, may it be on government websites or on social media, in local languages applicable to your respective countries to guarantee linguistic accessibility of all published information.
Accessibility, in a way, is a key value in our second recommendation. It is to ensure that marginalized groups and grassroots communities are being given the space to engage with government, especially for issues and decisions that affect them. These include indigenous people, persons with disabilities, and community-level interest groups who are rarely represented in open government discussions. They should be given context-relevant access to information and the space to engage meaningfully in matters that are of interest to them. This way, we capture the diversity within our respective countries, decision rooms, and discussions we have about public processes. And capturing the real-life diversity of civil society in the OGP processes, meanwhile, is a core of our third recommendation. We encourage government to co-create systems and improvements test with civil society when it comes to ensuring long-term participation of non-government sectors in OGP processes. This can building up from existing efforts or founding new processes that will ensure collaboration between governments and civil society in achieving goals and commitments under their OGP action plans.
And speaking of OGP action plans, our last recommendation would be to create baseline commitments in all future action plans of OGP countries. We hope that we see three mainstay commitments: open budget, open contracting, and open data. While we understand that some countries have written in such commitments in the past, we always see that there's always room for improvement here. And in order to keep the practice updated to the needs of the people, we should keep these three baseline commitments. Citizens will always be interested in how their government spend taxpayers' money, and having these commitments in every action plan moving forward will ensure that the practice of public disclosure and citizen participation will always be the default.
We know that there might be existing efforts in the different countries related to these recommendations, but we hope to encourage improvement for all OGP countries. Maybe it's for those who have put in the work before or those who are just starting to work on achieving these goals.
Our team will always be willing to help out and support countries that will be willing to take on these recommendations. At the end of the day, all these recommendations can only be achieved if we work together. Government and civil society with the youth, collaborating to ensure a more open government for all. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much for delivering such important thoughts as the youth representatives of the civil society. Well, with the suggestions being made today, I believe the public will be much more encouraged to participate in the process. And now, before we move on to the next presentations, we have from Accountability Lab, the Operations Coordinator, Alui Masood, and the Senior Operations and Programs Officer, Katie Fuss, that supports the youth representatives' activities. They have sent their message of support today, so let's watch it through the screen.
Hello, and welcome to the 2021 Open Government Partnership Summit held in Korea. My name is Alui Masood, and I am the Operations Coordinator at Accountability Lab. Now, Accountability Lab and the Government of Korea have dedicated their time towards training 26 young delegates in bringing their fresh and unique perspective to the conversation around open government. These delegates, the ideas that they bring and the concepts they like to introduce are, again, unique, they're professional, and they're quite smart. I am excited and proud towards introducing these 26 delegates to you all today and to the summit. Thank you so much for your time.
Hello, my name is Katie Fuss. I'm 25 years old, and I'm the Senior Operations and Programs Officer with Accountability Lab, as well as a founding member of the OpenGov Youth Collective. Historically, governance has focused on the what, not the who, what the policies are, rather than who is in the room designing and discussing them. Today, open government movements are thinking more deeply about whom they're including and whom they are leaving behind. On youth inclusion in particular, Accountability Lab is proud to have partnered with the Government of Korea to bring 26 unique and engaged youth delegates to the 2021 Open Government Partnership Summit. These delegates clearly illustrate that youth are not only the leaders of tomorrow, but are leading the way today.
Yes, thank you very much, both of you, for sending the message. And through the message, thank you very much for showing your support towards the youth. And now for our last topic, which is the inclusive digital innovation. We're going to welcome once again Executive Director Blair Glenkos to brief us on the topic.
The next and final group of youth delegates that I'd like to introduce to you is the group working together on issues of digital governance and inclusive digital policymaking. Digital tools and social media have empowered people through widespread access to information and global connections. Citizens are using technology to hold governments to account and to exercise their civic rights. Governments are using technology to be more transparent, accountable, and inclusive. They are also innovating solutions to pressing issues, including delivering better services, establishing cutting-edge systems of procurement, and fighting fraud and abuse. Yet the same technologies can represent real risks to democracies. Unaccountable institutions are leveraging technology to pursue their own interests. And public institutions are dealing with the unintended consequences of fast-moving technologies that often outpace government oversight. The 2021 OGP co-chair call to action highlighted ideas for OGP members to advance through their upcoming OGP action plans. Recommendations were made across areas including inclusive digital transformation and innovation, digital rights and safeguards against the misuse of digital technologies, and much more. And what I love about the elements of the recommendations that this group of youth delegates has come up with is again that there is a key focus on inclusion. There is such a danger with technology that, that policies leave behind those that do not have easy or affordable access to the internet. And I also really appreciate that this group did not just focus on the policies themselves, but the ways in which these policies will be implemented through awareness, skills, and capacity building. I'll let them tell you more about it all. I'm excited to hear about the policy proposals that they've come up with. And thank you again to this group and to all of the youth delegate groups for their amazing collective work on these issues. We look forward to working with governments and civil society and the government of Korea through OGP in the years to come to help integrate these ideas into government policymaking with support of civil society. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Executive Director. We are also excited to find out what they have to offer. So without further ado, let me introduce to you the representatives who has joined us for the discussions on the innovative, inclusive digital innovation. Thank you very much for joining the discussion. Golsen Guller, John Ha-eun, Jesse Jekere, Praise Ajibola Oluwanle, and Preeti Akos Obwar, Rayleigh Martin, Seok-jung, and Yang So-hee. Thank you very much, and I'll leave it up to John Ha-eun and Golsen Guller to start the presentation.
Thank you, everyone, and it's my pleasure to be here. Good morning from UK. I'm here today as a representative for the Inclusive Digital Innovation Team, which has participants from 6 different countries. We know that current digital information systems are not designed to be inclusive, accessible, or open. And we have witnessed the harm they can do to society and undermine democratic values when economic profit is the only goal.
Yes, this will be the last presentation brought to you by the youth representative. We're having a technical problem right now with the internet connection from the Golsen Guller. So, Golsen Guller, are you ready to restart the presentation?
Hello? Yeah, is it better now?
Go ahead.
Sorry. So we know the current digital information systems are not designed to be inclusive, accessible, or open. And we have witnessed the harm they can do to society and undermine democratic values when the economic profit is the only goal. Factors such as the existing inequities in society and the incredible fast development of new technologies add on top of all this, and a result, million people are left behind, and the adaptation of new technologies goes unquestioned. Although there are no quick fixes to this highly complex situation, we do have the power to challenge the status quo and work towards a more equitable implementation of new technologies in society. in a way that centers around citizens' interest to truly achieve inclusive digitalization. How we change the current system is by going beyond the techno-determinism, the belief that technology is the only solution we need, and looking at the impacts of technology on citizens' life and critically thinking about the direction we want to take in the future. Today, we propose a holistic approach to making this change happen, which actually connects well with the previous two proposals. Our policy draft consists of 3 steps. The first step is affordable and accessible access to digital information. The second step is able and active citizens. And the third step is applied and advanced programs. Over to you, Haun.
How can you achieve this step? For the first step, we recommend ensuring accessibility by creating a single online platform. It's important to ensure public access to information anywhere, anytime. And the digital solution is one of the most effective and efficient tools for that. Also, all the information should be easily understandable. Furthermore, affordability is key to accessibility. Most vulnerable groups often have comparatively less access to technology. This is well evident in other countries, but particularly in developing countries, as the extremes show that women, persons living with disabilities, the elderly, and even children struggle. So the platform we suggest should be affordable to the least beneficiaries in accord with each local situation. Of course, we also need to consider existing infrastructure and hardware limitations as well, rather than unintentionally creating new ones. Gerson?
Of course, we know providing access to digital technologies does not automatically bring citizen participation. The failure of the One Laptop per Child project is the most prominent example of this. The whole project failed because of the existing problems, such as the huge work overload of teachers and parents' inefficient digital skills. And moreover, there was no focus on personal support for children to make use of these laptops. That's why the recommendation 2 is all about digital skills and competences that are needed to engage with digital systems. These are also crucial for citizens to move away from being passive receivers of services and information and become critical thinkers and active contributors to the digital public sphere where they can exercise the power they have. We also recommend collaborating with grassroots organizations to make these efforts more effective. This active position is especially a must-have for people who are historically discriminated against to make their voices heard, participate in the digital economy, and for digital information systems to become more inclusive and diverse. Over to you, Han.
Lastly, as the advanced step, we urge all the citizens to be aware and actively engage in open data and relevant applications. Open data can tackle big problems, and some citizens already act as major players to utilize the data. However, numbers can hide drawbacks. Unless credibility and biases in data are questioned, it can do more harm than good to our society. So more context on who was involved in creating or processing data, how data is analyzed, and the impact on community is needed. Open data has the potential as a tool to promote civic engagement, as well as can be put to use in a way that benefits society. For example, the city of Seoul made a public transportation map for the disabled people by sharing the data as an API and keeping it updated with civic participation. Through this way, we believe the open governance will be completed by citizens, as well as leads to further inclusive innovation. So that leads me to the concluding part. We believe digital technology itself cannot be the solution alone to achieve inclusive digital innovation and open governance. Therefore, we, the youth delegation, urge that first, accessibility has to be the starting point, but efforts cannot stop there. Second, digital literacy can lead to citizen engagement and empowerment. Last but not least, open data has the potential to strengthen civil rights. We also would like to remind you that our policy recommendation paper is available to you both in English and Korean. So please give it a read for more details. And that's all I have to say for today. Thank you for your attention.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your proposal. Well, with the key focus on innovation, the last group made their proposals on how and what should be implemented for the inclusive digital innovation. Well, ladies and gentlemen, with this, all the youth representatives have made their policy resistance. The new perspective and the innovative ideas that has been shared today will indeed serve as a critical and a crucial driving force towards a better future. And now from Accountability Lab, the Global Director of Learning, Sherry Ray Erasmus, and the Programs and Learning Manager, Jaka Rutz, have sent their message expressing their expectations on the future activities of the youth representatives. So let's take a look.
Hello. Annyeonghasimnika. My name is Sherry Lee Erasmus, and I serve as the Global Director of Learning at the Accountability Lab. Over the last few weeks, I've been so honored to work alongside 26 dynamic leaders who participated in our OGP Youth Bootcamp. Listening to them share their experiences and their policy ideas makes one realize how citizens all over the world face similar challenges, albeit in different forms. But these young leaders are imagining new ways of catalyzing participation and improving governance, and they put accountability, inclusion, and accessibility at the center of their work. That makes me incredibly hopeful. We can rest assured that they are paving the way for much needed reforms. On behalf of the Accountability Lab, I'd like to thank the government of Korea for making it possible to bring these young changemakers together to continue building global networks for change. Thank you.
Sanbonani from South Africa. This is a traditional isiZulu greeting that roughly translates as I see you. My name is Jaka Rutz, and I work with Accountability Lab Global as a Programs and Learnings Manager. It has been an absolute privilege to co-facilitate the OGP Youth Virtual Bootcamp. The 30 youth delegates we connected with are from all over the world, and they will share some exciting policy initiatives in the coming days. This is just another example of how multi-stakeholder working groups can bring the government and civil society organizations together to co-create policy initiatives for the implementation of open government. When we share ideas and challenges, we identify overlaps in our work, plotting the road ahead for further collective action and future collaboration. The young change makers that participated in the bootcamp reminded me that collective learning and action combines into a powerful force, able to promote transparent, participatory, inclusive, and accountable governance. It is my hope that as we see each other, we are able to see more opportunities together. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, both of you, for the message. Yes, thank you for giving the big applause as well. In order to implement the open government, well, we are indeed standing at a critical juncture. And also, the youth will play a critical role in paving the way forward. So, thank you once again, all the representatives of the youth, for your passion and commitment towards the open governance. And of course, the Executive Director of Accountability Lab, Blair Glenkos, for leading the session. Moving on, we have Ms. Park Sung-min, the Secretary to the President for Youth Policy Office of the President, who spares no effort in order to expand the social participation of the youth and establish and implement a systemic youth policies, will deliver the closing remarks representing the Korean government. So ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming to the stage Secretary Park Sung-min with a big round of applause.
Good morning and good afternoon. Greetings to all of the youth leaders from Korea and abroad. I am Park Sung-min, and I'm serving as the Secretary to the President for Youth Policy. I'm very happy to be standing in front of you virtually to be able to share with you the government's policies on the youth. The youth have been involved actively in discussing our social issues and coming up with solutions. And the government has been working to create the youth-centered governance. And we've been developing various policies and programs for young people. Especially the Basic Act on the Youth was the main pillar for our legislative effort to facilitate youth participation. And by utilizing this act, we try to encourage young people to become more democratic leaders, and we're trying to protect their rights as well. In particular, we have the Youth Policy Coordination Committee. This is serving as a control tower for youth policies. The committee governs and discusses various youth policies, and they make suggestions and they set directions for youth policies in Korea. And also to expand the youth participation in the government, we're trying to implement various programs. Here we have many policy suggestions presented from the youth delegates. As you saw on the screen, some of these young people are joining us from all over the world, and it's early morning or late at night, but I can see that their passion enabled them to participate in this process with enthusiasm. So I was here listening to all of your policy suggestions, and what struck me was increasing accessibility to public information to increase civic engagement. And there were many discussions about these. And I believe that this will provide a big insight for Korean youth policies because our direction is similar to that. And all of these policy suggestions presented by the youth delegates will provide a very meaningful message to civil society as well as the governments. This may be a short event, but I believe that this youth summit will be serving as a platform to engage youth from all over the world in these public processes. And we will continue to hear from the youth about these policies. And I am a young person myself. And as someone who's serving at the Korean government, I will continue to open my ears and listen to the voices of young people. And also to create policies that have direct impact or meaningful impact on the youth. We will make sure that there will be enough youth participation in the decision-making process. Once again, thank you very much for your suggestions.
Much Secretary Park Sung-min to the President for Youth Policy, Office of the President of Republic of Korea for the remarks. Now, representing the International Civil Society, Executive Director Aiden Iakuze of Twa Visa East Africa and incoming OGP Steering Committee co-chair, who is working in all fronts to vitalize the open government policies, will say a few words. Please welcome Executive Director Aiden Iakuze through the screen.
Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening to all of you. It's a real pleasure to be here with you. And I can't tell you how excited I have been for the last hour listening to the proposals, the Youth Summit. You know, I actually asked them to email me the proposals themselves. So here they are. I've been looking through them as we've been mentioning through them, mentioning your amazing policies. But let me tell you, I was fantastically inspired by the comment in Shaime Burju's opening speech. She described young people as those of us, especially you leaders, I think 26, those of you who are crazy enough to think that you can shape democracy. Now you see, I think that's a fantastic form of craziness because you can shape democracy. And if you believe you can, you actually can shape democracy. And she said, we must do three things: unfold your potential as a young person, uphold your values, and be bold in your ambition. And what I heard in your youth policy recommendations, youth delegation policy recommendations, are exactly those three things coming into action. So let me congratulate you for the excellent ideas. I will only touch on a couple as I try and sort of deliver 3 or 4 insights from what I've heard. The basic thing I would like for you to take away from me is this: fight for those ideas. You have great ideas, now it is time to fight for them. Number 1, don't ask for permission anymore. This is how you fight for it. Don't ask for permission, go ahead and grab the opportunity to make the changes that you have described. If Greta Thunberg had asked for permission to skip school on a Friday to start her protest, I think she would have been told no. If Nelson Law of Hong Kong had asked for permission from his parents to protest for democracy in Hong Kong, they probably would have told him no. So don't spend too much time asking for permission. Grab the opportunities that are there to actually fight for these ideas. Second point, you speak a lot about digging, about data, access to data. And I would suggest that you dig into the data that is already available. There are governments, such as the government of Italy, Fabio, with Open Coesione. Have more young people dig into those portals about how the government of Italy is spending its money on COVID recovery. And there's an opportunity coming up in the coming years to make sure that you understand what is going on and make changes that you want to be changed. So dig into the data itself, get your hands dirty there. Third, take full advantage of your creativity and use culture, music, sports, etc., to drive this agenda forward. Korea is the home of the K-pop phenomenon. I know this because my 2 daughters love BTS, they love NCT, they love 17, and I also now love Korean music. So last week I was involved with Accountability Lab to speak about the anti-corruption music across Africa in an anti-corruption music award event. So culture is very powerful. In fact, you mentioned culture in your anti-corruption proposals. And in order to change culture, you need to be able to replace negative culture with positive culture. So use music, use dance, use art and expression to drive forward the anti-corruption agenda. A couple more things, really. I would so strongly suggest that you also roll up your sleeves as young people and get stuck in, and get involved, especially at the local government level, to get practical experience in driving forward the agenda that you are putting there. Don't wait for others to do it. There's a statement here in the policy, which in recommendation 1 of your inclusive digital information, which says, create a single mobile compatible platform, and you say, we recommend creating a single platform, but who's going to do it? I think you can be the ones to do it. You have the ideas, you can present them to the authorities and convince them that you'll be able to work on this. Katie, in her remarks, said, we focus a lot on the what, but less on the who. So my recommendation, my appeal to you is that you are the who, you need to be the ones to really focus on getting it done. So congratulations, and I'll finish with this thought. The future of the OGP really is to go from mechanisms into an actual movement that promotes transparency, accountability, and defends democracy around the world. And I think there are 2 places where that future is going to happen. The first one is with you as young people. The second one is also at the local government level, where there is more scope and opportunity for you as young people to get stuck in and to experiment with and to innovate the solutions that you have proposed. So I really personally look forward to working with you, to meeting with you in person, hopefully in the coming few months and the year, and to really driving this agenda forward. And I'd like to leave you with this thought: congratulations, and keep being crazy enough to think that you can change democracy, because you can. Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you very much. Though we regret that we were not able to have you in person, I think the message has been well delivered through the video. This was indeed a valuable time to listen to all the pace-setting ideas of the youth. I wish the open government vision suggested by the youth will be well received through the participants both joining us on and offline. As we encourage you to keep our support and to listen to the voice of our future leaders, the youth, we conclude the Youth Summit. Once again, thank you everyone for your participation. And one more thing, As the anti-corruption plenary will be held at 9 p.m. Korean Standard Time, we will be looking forward to your continuous interest and participation. Thank you very much.